Welcome to the Hats and Bats podcast with Matt and Kevin.
It started the first Hats and Bats podcast.
Yes, sir.
Yours truly, Matt.
What's going on, Matt? I am Kevin.
What's up,
you nothing much. If you have not heard already, I am on the Dad's Playbook with Coach Dubs and Coach White. But Matt, I remember talking to you a couple of weeks ago and was telling you about the podcast, and you said you want to get into it. So we thought about it for a little bit, put this little thing together called Hats and Bats because we're obsessed with hats, we're obsessed with baseball, and we're going to give it a try. We're going to see how we do, and I think we're going to do great. I think it's going to be fun. This is a baseball-centered podcast. We're going to talk about a lot of the topics that you hear on most baseball podcasts, all the top storylines and developments and everything that happens throughout the season and the offseason. But one thing that, Matt, you and I have talked about that doesn't get talked enough on these baseball podcast shows, outlets, whatever you want to call it, is, the positive impacts the sport of baseball has had on our culture and how we kind of enjoy all of those things that it does outside of the game itself that we can tap into. Things like hats, things like fashion, baseball cards, video games, board games, all that kind of stuff centered around baseball. We are going to feature all of that here on this podcast. So while this is going to be a topical baseball podcast, this is an everything baseball podcast. This is everything that we love about the game. All the good things that we want to promote, talk about, will be featured here on this podcast.
Baseball's sexy, man. We got to make baseball sexy again. It
Yes.
can't be like third fiddle, fourth fiddle anymore. We got to get it back in the mainstream.
Absolutely. And there's just, when it is in the mainstream, it seems like everyone's talking about something negative. And believe me, we're going to address those negative things because baseball in the past, 2 decades, there's been a lot of negative stuff that's been going on. And it kind of has fallen off of people's plates. And we're going to try to reintroduce that dish again to the whole country and everyone who's trying to listen to this podcast. So if you like baseball, or maybe you once liked baseball and you want to like it again, you want to get back into it again, this is the place where we are going to tempt you with all this great stuff that's happening in our game and around it. So let's get into it, buddy. Let's get right into it.
Let's get in the box. Let's go.
Yes. So we're going to do, every segment we have is going to be like your trip around the bases. So if you were a hitter like Matt and myself, power was not part of our offensive game.
Hey, speak for yourself.
What would you say your slug was when you were in high school?
Is it possible to be negative?
It is, because I think I flirted with that as well. I was always told to never drop the back shoulder. I wasn't barreling up pitches. My job was to knock the ball on the ground and beat it out to first base. So segment 1, we call it Beat It Out. And Matt, for our first one, the baseball season is upon us. Spring training has already got going. Now, this is not going to be our prediction episode. We're just going to kind of wet our whistle a little bit. So what is the best storyline going into 2024? Matt, you start us off.
Okay, let's go. So I was actually quite shocked by this when I started digging into the numbers because, with me being the English teacher, I got to love those numbers.
Absolutely.
So what I was thinking, going into this year, and you hear it through all the outlets, there is such a disparity between the highest spending clubs and the lowest spending clubs. Mm-hmm. And can a team that has bottom of the barrel payroll, can they compete in this? One of the things that you always hear about, like the NFL, NBA, all these other leagues, teams are able to compete that come out of nowhere because they have a salary cap, because everybody's playing with the same sort of revenue and income. But baseball's not like that. So I was just thinking, with this year, how difficult will it be for some teams to compete when you have other teams that are spending close to $300 million and you've got other teams spending less than $100 million? So it's that discrepancy through it. So like we were saying a little bit before we actually started recording this, when I was looking at the numbers, even before I was looking at the numbers, I was thinking without a doubt, New York Mets, number 1 payroll. Shocked to find out that the Mets don't have the number 1 payroll. Number 1 payroll, New York Yankees, which shocked me. I was not expecting that whatsoever. Mets come in second, but the Yankees Yankees and the Mets are right up there. The Yankees are right around 300, 290 million. The Mets come in at 283. Let me ask you this, Kev. What do you think
Yeah.
are the bottom three teams in payroll for this year?
So bottom of the barrel is absolutely the Oakland Athletics. I think
Ding,
they're
ding, ding.
around what 30-ish million in total payroll.
45 million.
All right, so 45 million. I thought it was a lot worse. I thought at this point they were just going to continue to lower the bar, but 45 million, it's bad, but at least it's not as bad as I thought it would be. So the Oakland Athletics are at the bottom. Colorado Rockies, the hat I'm donning right now, are they in the bottom three?
They are not in the bottom three. So
Probably that Chris Bryant contract is hanging on to them. So yeah, it's a lot of these teams, and again, I'm going with these teams because historically that's what they've been, and these owners of these franchises have routinely kept their teams at the bottom, and you know it's we have to start calling out these owners by name and not the franchises. You know, with everything that's happening with the athletic situation there and their greedy owner who is trying to now, of course, I say we have to call these owners by names. I already forgot the Oakland Athletics
Does he really exist?
He unfortunately he does, and he's trying to again destroy one of the greatest franchises in the history of the game. And again, in terms of long-lasting pedigree, the Athletics have been in Major League Baseball since its inception, in the early part of the 20th century. And again, like it's John Fisher is the name I'm looking for. And again, yes, he's trying to. It's what he's always has done. He's keeping his costs low so he can make as much of a profit as possible. I'm guessing Bob Nutting with the Pittsburgh Pirates would be another one. Are they at the bottom?
Ding, ding, ding. Number 29. They're coming
right, so,
just under 70, 68 million.
Yeah. That name definitely pokes out at me because, again, I've talked about him a lot, not only on other podcasts with conversations with people, because unlike the Athletics, the Pirates have actually brought about great talent over this past decade, and he has not done a single thing. I'm not about it just this year, and you're right. This year, they have a great group of talent. We look at the guys who've gone through that organization and his inability or his lack of desire to sign any of these guys and bring them back. Yeah, it's tragic. The Pirates are another historic franchise that's been with us since the inception, and they don't spend a lot of money. So we got Pittsburgh, we got Oakland. Can you give me a hint for the third one?
They recently changed their name.
Really, the Guardians?
That surprised me as well.
Yeah,
I know that they were cheap, but again, they're sitting right around like 84 million.
Yep.
But here's my thing. Okay, the past couple years, Oakland, Pittsburgh, not competitive. Whatever the Guardians are doing, I don't know if it was Tito or what the deal was going on with the Guardians.
Yep.
They field a competitive team. They pay Ramirez. It's just like they somehow just recoup. They keep things going. It helps too with that division being like really, really poor. And we'll talk more about that division later on the podcast.
Yep.
But they make do. Can you imagine if you take like the Guardians' salary, their infrastructure, their scouting, be like, we're going to bump up that payroll to 150 million. All that tax revenue that you're taking in, instead of pocketing that, let's invest that into the team. You've got to have a floor salary of 120 million. How good could the Guardians be?
Absolutely. And again, the environment of that organization, Jacobs Field, I don't know if they still call it Jacobs. I don't think they call it the Jake anymore. But that's one of the nicer ballparks that we have in the country.
Same thing with Pittsburgh.
Yes. Oh, that's probably one of the nicest one. Everyone I know I've talked to has gone to Pittsburgh says that is hands down one of the best ballparks in the country. And yet they're not doing a single thing to get anyone inside that ballpark. Owners like Bob Nutting, owners like John Fisher, they are what's destroying this game.
Yep. I hate the fact. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You got it.
I just hate the fact, again, with us clearly being like Mets fans, how Steve Cohen got all the pushback where like, okay, here you come in with the mega billionaire. He's going to be spending all this money on it. He's bad for the game. He's going to ruin the game. He can give out these $40 million contracts to Scherzer and Verlander. He's the bad guy. We've got to make the Cohen tax because he's going to ruin the game.
Yeah.
But to me, I'd be like, that's what I want my owner to do. How many years did we suffer with the Wilpons when we're sitting there like, what's a bargain basement left fielder that we can plug in and play and basically like not ever come up to like their actual stats. They never fill out the
Yep.
stat sheet. Well, you get an owner that spends money, and all of a sudden that's a bad thing. But then
Yeah.
again, like we were saying a little bit earlier, I was saying to you, I was shocked that the fact that the LA Dodgers were the 8th highest payroll. Now, I
Mhm.
know that they're finagling things and they're doing things which I think are a little bit shady, but apparently it's not. But they don't get any ramifications. You get top 3, top 2, top 1 player in the game, and you're paying him what, $1 million this year?
Yeah.
We're not going to be all up in arms about that because, okay, it's Los Angeles. Steve Cohen comes into the league. We've got to institute the Cohen tax.
Right.
It's hurting the game. To me, that's just as much hurting the game as it is Oakland paying $45 million for their team.
And we were naive going back 23, 25 years ago when we were the ones screaming about, oh, George Steinbrenner, he's terrible for the game. You know, the evil empire, it's they get to spend all this money. And the reality is they all have this money. That's how you get to own a professional team.
Why do we care what billionaires spend? Like, what do I care?
Exactly. And that's why, like, I really didn't destroy the Dodgers when they did these moves. You know what? Good for them. They found a loophole. They made it work. Why aren't more teams creative like this? Now, again, I think the Dodgers are a unique situation because Ohtani clearly wanted to go there and Yamamoto clearly wanted to go there. And I don't know if maybe there are a lot of guys who have no problem deferring that kind of money. And maybe that starts other teams doing the same thing too. And if that's what it takes to get more teams competitive, I'm all for it, unless it is a disadvantage, and then go ahead and make a rule like the Cohen tax to prevent it. The problem is all the rules we end up making go after the owners who are all about competing to win a title.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the problem. But we're not making any rules for the owners like Bob Nutting and the owners like John Fisher to actually try to be competitive. I was saying this to you the other day. Ken Rosenthal was on the Fair Territory podcast, and I love that podcast. I love Ken Rosenthal, and he made a really interesting point, and it wasn't the spirit of the point that I'm disagreeing with. It was just more like the wording of it. He said, and again, I'm not doing this in quotes, but it's about what he said, that it's a given that every team, it wants to win the World Series. It's a given. Owners don't have to say that. Okay, but he likes when owners say we're trying to be competitive. No. At the base, if you are one of the 30 owners of Major League Baseball, at the very least, you're going to be competitive. At the very least, you're going to be competitive. That should be ground zero, is I'm going to try to win more games than I lose. And you have all these owners in the game year after year after year. They don't care about their wins and losses. They care about their profit line. I would love to see 30 owners every single year coming out and saying, no, we're trying to win the World Series this year. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to win the World Series here in Colorado. We're trying to win the World Series here in Seattle. We're trying to go ahead and win the World Series. And you made an interesting point about how this whole idea of this disparity between the teams and the likelihood of your team, if they don't have a high payroll, can they compete? Well, you look at the Arizona Diamondbacks last year. They did not have a high payroll. They were in the World Series. The Tampa Bay Rays have now gotten there twice, and their stadium situation is an absolute fiasco. They've gotten there twice. That same Cleveland team we're talking about, who refuse to spend big dollars, they've gotten the World Series the last 10 years. There is a path. So if you are a fan of these quote-unquote poor franchises, you should still have a little bit of hope. But what we all should be doing is urging the guys like Fisher, like Bob Nutting, they have to sell their teams. If their bottom line is not to try and win a World Series at any point, say goodbye, sell your team, make your profit, and sell it to someone who's actually going to try, like a Steve Cohen, like a George Steinbrenner, like what the Magic Johnson group has been trying to doing in LA. Those are the people who should be involved in the game.
And you think about it too, like the recent stuff that was happening with Oakland. like Las Vegas doesn't even want the A's.
No.
Like that's to the point where it's getting to where it's like, look, it's not a good idea for them to come here. Like,
Right.
why is this franchise? Why do those fans? I remember seeing videos when all of this was going down that they were going to be moving. Those playoff atmospheres when people are rocking out,
Yes.
when Grant Balfour is coming in at the end of the game, like that's electric stuff. You go back to when Cespedes was there,
Yes.
like that was an electric.
Oh my God!
And the owner crushed that.
Yes. When they had Mulder, Zito, Hudson, Tejada, Chavez, like those were awesome teams. Those were in incredible environments. See, but again, you just slipped into it. We're doing it. It's not that Vegas doesn't want the Athletics. Vegas doesn't want Bob Nutting representing their city. The way he's represented the Athletics over the last decade. That's what they don't want. And I don't blame them for not wanting that. I'd rather bring in your own owner, start fresh, start your own traditions, keep the Athletics in Oakland with that fan base, with that history. They need a new owner. That's all they need. That's all they need. It fixes everything.
Last thing I'll say, and then we can get on with yours, because love every point that you've made. How weird is this, okay? Guess the over-under of how many wins the Oakland A's are projected to have this year. What would you say?
I think I saw it. Is it 56?
56 and a half.
Yeah.
Guess how many wins the Boston Celtics are expected to win this year?
About the same, right? 57, 58?
58 and a half.
Yeah.
So you have a baseball team that's playing 162 is projected to have less wins than a basketball team that plays 82. That's
and you know
what I say about the Oakland A's.
And I'll climb the ladder a little bit more. Again, you really want to fix these problems. Comes from the commissioner. The commissioner has to encourage this stuff.
That's
the
a whole other topic.
Yeah, 100%. And the commissioner, and he's stepping down, whatever it is, 6 years, whatever it is. We can only hope that you get someone who is a baseball enthusiast to take over that position and fix this problem.
I'll take Bud Selig.
Oh God! I want to take Mike Greenberg. He pleaded his case again. I have no problem with that. Bring in Mike Greenberg. I do not care. I do not care. Yep.
All right, absolutely. So there's like my typical high school batting. I'm up at the bat. It's probably like a little 0-2 slider that I just dribbled over, topped over. I'm running out to first base. I beat it out because I'm relatively quick. You're in the box now. 2-0 pitch. You're looking for a fastball. Here it comes. What are you doing with it? What's your
I got the 2-0. My third base coach has already come down and he talked to me and he goes, Kevin, I need you to squeeze out a bunt here. Because he knew with my power, okay, and my swinging ability, even 2-0, I wasn't getting the job done. But I could place a bunt. Like Babe Ruth could call his shot. I could call my bunt. You want 12 feet down the third base line? I got you, coach. I can do that. And the spark plug would have beat it out down to first base. That was my Little League nickname. So the thing I wanted to highlight today is that same team we were talking about a little while ago, the Los Angeles Dodgers. And not just the typical stuff that people have been talking about. All this, oh my God, what could the Dodgers be with Ohtani, Yamamoto? How many wins could they have? They're clearly the World Series favorites. No. None of that stuff. The Dodgers this offseason became the supervillains of the sport.
What baseball needed.
Exactly. This is what we felt before with the Yankees and the Red Sox when they were doing all their crazy spending. The Dodgers became that team. ESPN has talked more about baseball because of the Dodgers than they have probably the last 5 years combined. Everyone wants to see what this team is going to become. And if you are not a Dodger fan, you now hate the Dodgers. And it's a good hate. It's a hate that we need because we very rarely do we get a very black and white view of things in sports, especially now because a lot of our athletes are good role models. They are positive role models. And it's hard to hate a lot of these guys. But this team might be so incredibly good that we're going to have no choice but to hate them, just be envious and jealous of their success. And they look like this juggernaut that will not be beaten this year. Not only did they went ahead and they signed Ohtani and Yamamoto, but then they brought in Tyler Glasnow, who could be one of the predominant pitchers in the game. He was a Cy Young candidate. He's a fireballer. That rotation on paper looks incredibly good. They brought Kershaw back, who had a very good year. Bobby Miller. Yeah, well, totally. Yeah, that's what we get when you get a pitcher approaching 40, or over 40 for that matter. And we got Bobby Miller coming up, who's the next big pitching prospect they have. And the Dodgers have hit on a lot of their pitching prospects. Unfortunately, they just don't stay healthy.
Is Walker Buehler coming back this year?
Walker Buehler comes back, I believe, halfway through the season. He'll be able to come back. So he'll be more like a trade deadline addition. But he's got to rev up. He's got to be ready to go. You don't know what you're going to get, I think. But regardless, on paper, this team looks incredibly powerful. They're going to be incredibly polarizing. And we're going to watch every move Ohtani makes. And what makes this so fascinating, as much as we have crowned them the off-season champions, I don't know if they're still a complete team yet. This is a team that has struggled every single postseason. And, it's funny, in my classroom, I have a class on, I call it America Through Sports. It's about sports history. We're on our basketball unit right now, and we're doing this big trial on the GOAT trial. Who's the greatest between Michael and LeBron? And so many of my kids on the pro Michael Jordan side talk about that paper trophy when LeBron won in the COVID bubble, doesn't really count, wasn't that big of a deal, so on and so forth. Well, if you're of that mindset, and then that Dodger World Series during COVID, pretty much the same thing there. It's not as highly touted as any other World Series title. And he begs the question, can this group finally come over that hill and win the World Series? They're an incredibly top-heavy team. They have great names. Then you look at the bottom half of the lineup. You look at the bottom half of the rotation. It would not shock me in the least. They won 100 games, and Yamamoto is a stud, and Glass now regains his form, and he pitches 30 games or 25 games or whatever, and they make a great 1-2 punch. Also wouldn't shock me if Glass now only makes 12 starts and Bobby Miller only makes 15 starts, and Kershaw again comes back, and he's just an older man. Yamamoto is not as great as we thought he was. And then you're paying all that money, it's deferred, in a DH, in a lineup where, yes, Mookie, Ohtani, Freeman, Will Smith, sounds great.
But then,
what about the rest of that lineup?
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
So let me guess the Dodgers over under for the year.
It's got to be 94, 5?
Oh, way off.
It's higher.
Way higher. 103.
Yeah.
103 and a half.
I'm sorry. And again, I have a hard time with any team really just saying, okay, they're just going to walk into 100 wins at the beginning of the season. I think for those same reasons I just mentioned, that those questions in the rotation, especially if Glasnow doesn't stay healthy again, I could see them, having a hard time getting in the playoffs, because I think they're going to definitely get in the playoffs. But the Diamondbacks made some smart choices this offseason. That team looks stronger. And we've seen their pedigree now. They've been in the World Series. They've been there before. They know how to do this now. The Padres added a lot of pitching. It may not be as sexy as a team as well as last year with Soto, but maybe they become a more complete team. Maybe it's Ewing theory. Maybe they're better off without him. So now you have 3 teams who possibly contend that division, and the Giants, no matter how old that lineup looks, they always somehow win 80 games. So it's not a cakewalk for me in that division that I can just hand them 100 games. Do you feel like it's a slam dunk they're going to win 103?
Okay, so if I'm a betting man, which I just started dabbling into it, I think I would actually take the over, because everything you said about the division, I think the Diamondbacks are going to take a step back. I just feel like with those added innings on your arm, I feel like there's always that regression after that big leap, that unexpected leap, where now you're dealing with fatigue when it's July and August and you put in 230. I feel like those innings come back to bite you. And I think the Dodgers are good enough where they can sit there and be like, okay, the Padres are not the same Padres as last year. Even though they weren't that great last year, like you said, they're not that sexy team anymore. Who knows what you're going to get out of Tatis? You don't know with the Padres. I feel like the Giants are just going to be a dumpster fire. They would be my pick for one of the worst teams in the league.
I feel like we've been saying that, though, for you and I have been saying that for the last few years. And yet, when we look up at the standings, and there they are with 80 to 83 wins. There always seems to be kind of there.
But there's no Matt Cain. There's no Tim Lincecum. I just feel like that team.
No, but but Logan Webb is very good, and maybe when Robbie Ray comes back, like and he can find his form again. Like Kyle Harrison, one of their top prospects, should be up this year. He's one of the best pitching prospects in the sport. I see what you're saying, and again, that wouldn't shock me either. If the bottom finally falls out in San Francisco and they're like a 72 win team, it just hasn't happened yet. But you know what has happened? What has happened? The Dodgers are never quite what we think they're going to be.
Very true.
Even with Ohtani Yamamoto, I'm still questioning it.
I was sold. I'm somebody who sees something in the moment. I'm like, you sold me. Being on Twitter, being on TikTok, I was watching videos of Yamamoto's curveball.
Oh, it's nasty.
Dude, I've never seen a woman this sexy in my life. The
Oh my
snap
God.
on it, the same arm angle, the same... I couldn't read anything coming out of the arm. I'm sitting there like, you're gearing up 98, and all of a sudden he drops that yak on you. I'd be like,
yep,
thank you, sir. Like, okay, I couldn't hit 75. You throw that at me, I'd be like, yep, thank you. I'm gonna go take Pine. Like, give me a break with that.
See, because we watched so much of Senga last year, we've seen so many of these pitchers from Japan come over who have a similar motion and delivery. There's something about his size and his length when he pops the fastball out and his arm angle and the deception that comes with explodes out of his hand. All of a sudden, it's on you. That strikeout of Marcus Semien in the first inning of yesterday's game, that was incredible. That was absolutely
incredible. Like candidate.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just on him. So, yeah, I mean, his off-speed stuff's great. I think the fastball plays incredibly well. And I think, yeah, I think he's going to be very successful.
The thing that worries about him, and we went through this a little bit last year at the beginning with Senga, when you go from the Japanese ball to the American ball, the seam issue, the size of it, like that worries me a little bit. But again, like watching him throw, I'm like, this dude, like,
I think he's gonna be fun.
Oh my God! Like that's the one thing, and again, with us being Mets fans, the biggest moment, pretty much of every single season of my baseball life, was the day the Yankees were eliminated. Like that was the day where I was always the happiest. Other than 2015 and 2000, we never got to that like apex moment. So it was always me rooting hardcore against the Yankees.
Of course,
one of my best baseball memories is Dave Roberts stealing second base.
Oh, absolutely.
Johnny Damon hitting the foul pole for the grand slam.
Luis Gonzalez floater over Derek Jeter's head. Absolutely.
Yes,
I remember the next year in 2002, you remember Donnie? I went to high school with Donnie. We were really good friends. And the Yankees lost to the Rally Monkey, lost to the Angels in the ALDS. That was K-Rod just throwing absolute bullets. The Yankees couldn't catch up to it. We went to Lids that next day and got Angels hats just so we could just shove it in the face of our Yankee fans. Absolutely. Exactly. And I think you're right. I think the Dodgers have these same qualities right now. And I think it makes it incredibly compelling. There's two seasons. There's your favorite team season and whatever the Dodgers are doing.
Yep.
That's going to be the stuff you tune in for. And I think there's enough competition out there. Strangely, there's not enough talk about the Atlanta Braves, probably because their offseason wasn't as flashy as the Dodgers. But I still think in a series, I'm going to take the Braves arms, the Braves lineup, over that Dodgers lineup. I still think they are the team to beat in the National League, no matter what projections say. But that's another team that has only gone to the World Series once. And now we're going to come to your team we're still in Beat It Out. But our next part of Beat It Out is we've been talking about the Dodgers and all the excitement. But what team are you most looking forward to this season? Now, I think it's a team that the Braves have a hard time with come postseason time.
And it's the team I want the Mets to be like the swagger, the bravado, I'm going to let my chest hair out. I'm going to let the hair flow. I'm going to give you the biggest FU, and my fans are going to love me for it. What the Philadelphia Phillies are, that's what I want the New York Mets to be. Yeah. That lineup, you're talking about the Dodgers lineup being top heavy. The Phillies lineup, 7, 8 deep. You got JT batting 7th.
Yep.
Sign me up for that. That pitching rotation, Nola back in the mix. You know Wheeler's just going to shove every single time he's out there. Like, Tawan Walker's your number 4. Okay, again, not the sexiest guy in the world. He can get you out.
He gets you innings. He can go 5-6 innings, and it's okay. Yeah, it might be 6 innings at 4 runs, but it's dependable. You can have strategy off that when it's consistent. Absolutely.
They scare me with the back end of their bullpen. Like, I heard some things about them potentially like going after some of the bigger name closers, especially if like the Guardians, if they start like poorly out of the gate, they solidify that back end of that rotation. There's no doubt in my mind that if I'm a betting person, I'm looking at them and I'm being like, that is the team I want to invest in. As much as I hate him, as much as like I would want to throw batteries at him like he's John Rocker. Bryce Harper to me is like one of the most fascinating baseball players we have seen in forever. When you go back to him being in high school and he's in that home run derby at Tropicana Field and he's actually hitting like yaks out into like wherever it is in Tropicana Field where it goes. Just the swagger that he has. What doesn't matter if it's like the Fanatic shoes, whatever he has. They are just like, yo, you come in here, we're gonna kick you in the face. I love the fact what they did with oh my god, why am I blanking out? On Trey Turner. When Trey Turner's having the poor beginning of the year. And the Philly fans are now the Motto fans. They get behind him. They didn't boo him. Let's cheer this guy. Let's give him a standing ovation. All of a sudden, Trey Turner turns into like the USA Trey Turner, and the Phillies are a juggernaut.
And like, this is the same fans who boo Jalen Hurts and this offense towards the end of the season, and that was coming off a Super Bowl season. So, but there's something incredibly lovable about this group, right? You should want to hate them as a Mets fan. You should want to hate them. I remember having this conversation at work with my other fellow Mets fans, and they were talking about, I hate the Phillies. And I'm sitting there going, I kind of like the Phillies. Like, what do you mean? Like, I don't like the Phillies. I don't root for the Phillies, but there's nothing about that team I don't like. You said it perfectly. That's what you want your team to be. You want your team to have this colorful group, and Bryce Harper is an incredibly colorful character. One of the few great ones we have in the game. And yes, there is something to embrace about that, even though they are the rival. Listen, the Mets are competitive. I'm rooting like hell against them. But from a baseball fan standpoint, they're one of the best franchises we have in the sport right now. This was like how the Red Sox used to be, when the first time they won the World Series. Absolutely. They were, oh my God, they were the Cowboy Up guys. That was that group. They are these incredibly, my God, just they bring in people, and in a good way. And I think that's exactly what they are. And I think, whenever they're on TV, it is incredibly exciting to watch them play.
And even, like, I hate looking at him as a fellow long hair guy. Like, I always root for the guys that have the long hair. But when you look at, like, Marsh, and it's just like he's perpetually wet. Like Christina always says, like, what is the deal with his hair? It's just, I love him, though. Like, you're telling me I can have Brandon Marsh, or I can have, this is going to sound outlandish, because, like, he's a cornerstone for the Mets. You're telling me, like, Marsh or, like, a Nimmo?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know really what I'm doing there, because I feel like you said there's like that dirtiness, that grit to them, where it's just like, yes, whatever they do, it works. And watching them as a fan of baseball, I love it. And I love the fact that I should hate them so much. If you tell me if it's in the series, if it's in the NLCS to go to the World Series, it's the Braves or the Dodgers versus the Phillies, there's no doubt in my mind who I'm rooting for. There's no, maybe rooting is a strong word. Who I want to see get to the World Series.
Absolutely.
The Mets should be what the Phillies are. That's what I want.
Yeah, and maybe one day they can be. I mean, the way the Phillies did this, I mean, you're talking about guys like Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto, Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber. They went out there and they spent big money. These are not homegrown guys. Bryson Stott is, Nola is, but even Wheeler, not a Philly guy. They went out there and they invested into this group, into this team, into this identity. And that's definitely one way you can go about doing it. And I feel like most of the time it doesn't work out. I mean, Dombrowski has had quite the pedigree, but he has done it with somewhat of a base. A group of guys like we did in Boston. Yes, he brought in the likes of Chris Sale and whatnot. But Mookie was a homegrown guy. Devers was a homegrown guy. When he did in Detroit, he had he brought in Miguel Cabrera and Prince Fielder. But there were other guys. Justin Verlander was a homegrown guy. I mean, this is the ideal Dombrowski team.
And I don't want to go like off down on a tangent, but when you're talking about Dombrowski and like what he did bringing people in, I'm looking at the Mets now with like David Stern. And again, when the hire happened, I loved it. I was all on board. Now again, maybe this year is the rebuild year, but I'm seeing like Milwaukee East with what's going on with some of the transactions. Like, is it, do we want to get under that luxury threshold so we can spend for Soto and whomever afterwards?
Yeah.
When Dombrowski's like, look, we need the center fielder. Okay, we're gonna go make a trade with the Angels and bring in Marsh. Like, we're okay to when we've got Stott, and he could be a Gold Glove shortstop. We're gonna go get Trey Turner. We're going to get rid of a club favorite in Rhys Hoskins, and then we're going to plug in Bryce Harper over there. They just always seem to like retool, and I'm like, that's what I want. I want that in my life.
Yep. And if you remember with those guys too, it also makes, I think, this situation unique when you think about those guys' free agency. We thought Trey Turner was going to get like these crazy, crazy contracts. And then he ended up going to the Phillies. We thought Bryce Harper was going to get crazy, crazy contract. The Yankees were going to go after him. The Dodgers were going to go after him. And he didn't get the market he thought he was, so he ended up in Philadelphia. When Kyle Schwarber became a free agent, this is after he helped Boston, that awful Boston team, push the Astros in the ALCS, I think they pushed him to 6 games that year. And then no one wanted Schwarber, and then they gave him the money. This is a group of guys who I feel like had this major chip on their shoulder, and it hasn't left them at all. And I do worry if that kind of adds like the magic or the kind of like the lovability of this team, because there's a great hunger there. And you're right, when we talk about the Mets, that's again a topic for another episode. I don't know, right, if there's guys on the Mets that do have that same kind of hunger like these guys do.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Take out the contract. Contracts don't mean anything, even though they're probably relatively in the same ballpark.
Yeah.
Who would you rather have as your shortstop for the next 4 years? Francisco Lindor, Trey Turner?
Can I cop out and say it's okay to have either one of them? It's cop out. I know it is. Because I do love Lindor. I think Lindor is incredibly. I think Lindor wants to win. I think Lindor wants to win bad. I think Lindor is a good team. I think he's a great team guy, actually. So the first one's there at spring training again. I think Lindor gets an incredibly bad rep because of the money, because of the contract, because we thought he was going to be this 330 home run guy every single year. And unfortunately, we had to, quote unquote, settle for a top 3 shortstop in the game. Yep. I'm okay settling with that. I absolutely am. But he's only one. There's not another Lindor on the team. And the Phillies have 5 other Trey Turners. Yep. You know what I'm saying? Guys of that pedigree. We don't have that. Even when Cohen was spending the money, we didn't have that in the lineup. I mean, you don't think
Pete's a gritty guy?
Hang on one second.
We'll get into that later.
Yeah, we can. But who's been hitting behind Pete in this lineup?
True. Very true.
Yeah. Guys like, oh my God, the fat guy last year.
Vogelback.
Yeah, Vogelback hitting 5th in the lineup. You know what I mean? Like guys of that caliber, like they haven't committed to it the way the Phillies have, and that's why we like the Phillies so much. But you guys,
say that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would like to just to clear it. I would take Lindor as well. I think his intangibles are beyond anything else. I just quickly looked up even like the WAR from last year, and I don't want to go big on statistics. He's a 6, Trey's a 3.5. Yeah. I think.
Well, Trey also had a down year last year too,
True.
but yeah.
Yes.
But you can't go wrong with either one of them. You really can't. I'm happy to have Lindor. But listen, spending money is not the only way though either. And for me, my team I'm looking forward to the most this year is a team that has not spent a lot of money. But to me, there's a crazy amount of excitement around them, and that's the Cincinnati Reds. Now, they gave us, oh my God, they gave us a little taste last year. There was that 6-week stretch, I think it was the end of June or end of July into August or into July, where they were all of a sudden on top of the division out of nowhere. It was Ellie De La Cruz mania. He was the name in the game who everyone was idolizing. And like, oh my God, this is the next phenom. This is the next Fernando Tatis. This is the next guy. And then we got greedy. we just thought because there have been those like a Fernando Tatis, like an Alex Rodriguez, guys of that caliber that we're just always going to get them, and they fell off a little bit. They fell out of the division race, and they showed their youth. They showed their immaturity. They showed they were not quite ready for the stage yet. And how can you blame them? With that young group, guys like Ellie De La Cruz, guys like Hunter Green, guys like McLean, like all these young guys they have there, they're not ready, but they're all back this year. And they're in a division that I think, to me, is not compelling at all. To me, it's the same old Cardinals. It's the same old issue of, hey, we have this young guy. We like this young guy. We play this young guy for a little bit, and then we don't play him anymore because he's probably not that good. We've seen that with Dylan Carlson. We've seen that now with Nolan Gorman. We've seen that with Jordan Walker. Like, you have all these guys that they should be. That's why they brought in Arenado and Goldschmidt, to go along with this young, talented group. But that group hasn't clicked at all yet. And that's not even the bad part of the Cardinals. The issue with the Cardinals has always been the pitching. And what did they do? This offseason, they took the cheap choice and tried to find bargain basement deals with the likes of Sonny Gray and Lance Lynn to try and piece together a rotation. But this is not a World Series caliber rotation. Not at all. Because I don't think the Cardinals truly, they believe they can win the division. They're not competing for a World Series title. That's not a team that's telling me they're going to be for the World Series title.
You're overlooking the Cardinal way. The Cardinal way makes everything right. Everything happens because of the Cardinal way.
But it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked in a decade. There's been no Cardinal way in the last 10 years. That mystique is gone. That era is gone. It walked out officially at the end of last year with Yadier Molina and Adam Wainwright. They were the last two remnants of that. Absolutely. Exactly. So, no, that's gone. That's the Cardinals. The Cubs, who finally brought back Cody Bellinger, which is great. I'm glad Cub fans are happy. But what else did you do? What else did you truly do this offseason? What made you so incredibly better to say, okay, we are the perennial favorites, not only in the division, but we can go ahead and compete for a World Series? I'm not seeing anything they did there. And clearly the Brewers became sellers before they actually became sellers by trading away Corbin Burns. The writing's on the wall there. They're rebuilding. And I look at this young Reds team with all this young, promising talent and more on the way, especially from a pitching side of things. Rhett Lauder is one of the best pitching prospects in baseball. He's one of the best college pitchers as well. Really built his way in college. When he first started his freshman year, he had over a 6 ERA, brought it down to 2.37 his last year on campus. Now is the prominent figure in that Reds organization. You got another guy by the name of, Connor Phillips, who came over in the Manners trade, who, again, highly touted, I believe, can be an impact guy, still has control issues. There's all this talent that's there in this organization. And if it somehow clicks in what I consider to be a wide open division this year, that's going to be incredibly compelling to watch. I don't think we've seen the best of Ellie De La Cruz. I don't think we've seen the best out of a lot of these guys that are coming. And if anyone's going to try to convince me that, oh, no, the Cardinals and the Cubs, they're the safer bet, there's a pedigree there, there's not. There's not one big enough, I think, that the Reds could not overcome when these young guys hit. And I'm hoping it is this year. And if it is this year, that 6-week stretch we had with the Reds, where they were the talk of baseball, I think that could last the whole year. They could become this year's Orioles.
That's how that analogy. I love that analogy.
Yes. I mean, it's the same thing. The Orioles were not projected. Think about it. The Orioles had a taller mountain to climb than the Reds do last year. The Yankees were still the stalwarts. The Rays had made the playoffs every single year. The Blue Jays, with all the money that they have spent. Even the Red Sox, no one could really count out the Red Sox at the beginning of last year because of the talent they still had and all the Red Sox nation and the belief that people still have in that franchise. But the Orioles we're talking about the Orioles being World Series contenders coming out of the American League. And I'm not saying the Reds can all of a sudden elevate to that, but can they elevate to the top of this division? Absolutely, with this young talent they have.
Why the Arizona Diamondbacks of 2024?
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, listen, for that to seriously happen, Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, Ashcroft, and Abbott all have to have good years. They don't have to be Cy Young candidates, but they have to have, all four of them have to have good years. And hopefully you get something out of these pitching prospects down the line as well. They have a great closer in Diaz at the back end of that back end of the bullpen. So they have that closing piece there, absolutely. And again, you look at this, they have a log jam of infielders, which it's funny because on some of these podcasts they're saying how that's a problem and they don't really get the Reds thinking there. Too much of anything to me is not really a bad thing because it gives them flexibility that if they are contenders, they can trade away one of those two pieces and fill in any gaps that they have. I am very bullish on the Reds because of the little brief taste we got last year.
And I don't know if you even know this, my dad was grew up in Cincinnati, so Cincinnati's always had a special place in my heart. So it's always like my dad was like, okay, I'm going to adopt the Mets because like that's your team and I'll root for them. But in the back of his mind, he was the Pete Rose, the Johnny Bench. When my dad played baseball, when he was a senior in high school, he actually had Pete Rose come to his baseball banquet as a rookie.
Nice.
So it was like the Reds have always been like ingrained in like my family. So I always had a special place in my heart for the Reds. And you said earlier, like, we haven't seen the best of De La Cruz. Here's my question to you.
No.
You said we have this log jam in the middle of the infield. Have we seen
the corners? Yeah, third base.
Have we seen the best of Jonathan India? Is he going to be the DH, or is he going to be somebody that gets shipped out?
I'm actually surprised he's still on the team, but I don't think they have found many bidders for him. Yeah, I think he is the odd man out. He's one of the worst defensive second basemen in the league. I mean, from an offensive standpoint, if they want to put him at DH, but again, you do kind of have that log jam there. You brought in Jaime Candelario. You have a bunch of guys there, and to me, you don't want to impede the progress of the young guys, so you have to play the young guys, and one of those guys are going to have to go. I think India, because they get brought in Candelario, that he's got to be the odd man out. I think he has to be.
But would you take him at DH?
I would rather them have a different DH. I think India needs a new place to go to. I think a fresh scenery could be very helpful for him. I think it's time they move on from Jonathan India. I would move on.
Jonathan India's father is a huge what fan?
Oh, I have no idea.
He's a huge New York Mets fan. Would you take Jonathan India?
No.
Really?
No.
Over McNeil? Would you say and be like, I'm going to put
no.
McNeil?
Oh my God, no. Oh my God, no.
Take batting champion McNeil out. And okay, so like I'm not as familiar with India's defensive games. I'm looking up his stats right now. It's negative 6.6 WAR. That's like Derek Jeter level bad. Like,
wow, he said it already in the first podcast.
Gotta get my zing in there.
Wow.
So, but okay, so with as bad as he was defensively, okay, that's atrocious. Even 2022 was negative 7.3. Like, okay, like that's really bad. He still had a 3.1 WAR. Still had a 3.1 WAR. I'm saying that I have a 24-year-old ex-rookie of the year. I'm not giving up on him. Again, it could be because he's got the long hair. It could be that I love those type of players.
I have. Oh, okay. I was saying because I have no issue with the long hair guys. I would much rather have McNeil. Again, I just think, I get what he can do with the bat, but that's not what I want out of my DH. I mean, really, the Reds don't have what I would really want on my DH, which is a guy who's hitting 260, 30 home runs, 100 RBIs, a good on base percentage. Like, that's not him, but that's what I'd want out of my DH. That caliber of a player. Yeah, I don't see that being him.
How about this then? How about this for a nice little Mike Greenberg transition? If we're going into our little second segment here, our rounding second, if we're talking about players we're looking forward to seeing the most here, you know how I feel. People around us know how I feel about this player. This is the type of player that annoys the living daylights out of me. The amount of times the guy pats his glove when he's standing at first base, the goofiness of him. He's the type of guy that I envision when he is making love to his wife or girlfriend. He is looking in the mirror at himself the entire time. That's the type of guy that Pete Alonso is. Can you imagine, though, a Pete Alonso DHing for a team like the Cincinnati Reds. You then take them and then elevate them up.
It would be incredible. It would be incredible.
There is your 40 home run, your 110, 150
That's your guy.
RBI guy.
That kind of guy. Yep.
Going back to our very first segment of beating it out, would the Reds pay for somebody like that? I think that completes the deal. I think that puts them in another stratosphere.
And again, the Reds have not notoriously been big spenders, but there have been times they spent money.
Votto.
Like there was that group of when they signed, they gave Votto big money. They brought in Mike Moustakas had a bigger contract than they usually do with other guys. Like they have showed those times where yes, they are willing to spend money. And the times they didn't work out for them. They restarted the whole thing all over again. And now that you have this young group, because to me, this group's way better than what they had before, like those Brand Phillips era teams, like the Jay Bruce teams, remember Austin Kearns, guys of that nature. This group's way more exciting. It's way more I would want to invest in. Do I see the Reds making a splash at the deadline for Alonso if the Mets made him available? Maybe. I mean, I think that would be pretty unheard of for that franchise. But I wouldn't rule it out because again, I think the fit there would be so great. And again, he'd only be oh my god, and it'd only be a half-year rental, so I can't imagine that he'd have to give up that much for him. But you know what? Let's write that one down, and maybe we can come back and revisit this when the Mets are 12 games out of first place on June 1st, and we start thinking about, okay, what's going to be some trade deadline deals we're going to see in a month or two.
He annoys me to no extent. Like I understand the value that he brings, and I understand you can't 40 home run first baseman don't grow on trees, and his defensive capabilities have gone up exceptionally. He's never going to be Keith Hernandez, but he's not playing over there with like 2 left feet. Like he has made significant strides. I'm sitting there looking at, okay, there is an obvious reason why the Mets have not talked contract with him. It's Scott Boras being his agent.
Scott Boras.
There's something there. Yeah. And it's just like, look, is there no coming from their end? Like they're not pushing for a contract. They want him to hit free agency. Well, and Steve's like, look, nobody's going to outbid me. So like let's go. Nobody's got a bigger wallet than I do. There's just something to me that smells very funny about the whole situation. When you gave McNeil an extension, you gave Nimmo, or you paid Nimmo in free agency. You have Lindor. So I'm just really curious this year. With me, as much as I dislike him and how goofy I think he is, I do understand how valuable he is. But I can also see him being a little bit of having a mental struggle, knowing this is my contract year. I could potentially be making $30 million plus over the next 7, 8, 9 years, however long this contract is going to be. And I can see him regressing towards a 220. His K rate drives me insane. Like I talk all the time with my father-in-law. Shout out to Teddy if you watch this, Teddy. There's never a batter I see more. If it's an 0-2 count, do not throw the guy a strike. You're going to throw a slider low and away, or maybe you're going to waste a fastball, elevate it, and then you're going to bury one outside, and he's going to be off his back foot, and he's going to be swinging like he's going fishing. It happens every time. And again, this is Joe Schmo looking on the couch, watching this, knowing what's going to happen. Is he going to be able to adjust to that when things aren't going well? Is he going to expand his zone? He's got like a 22% K rate, which again is not outlandish for this time of the year. And like you said, there's nobody behind him. But I want him to take the next step.
But can you take the next step when you're asked to be Batman and Robin? And again, that's nothing against Lindor. That's nothing against him at all. He's a great player, but he's hanging at the top of the lineup. Pete has had no protection. And you talk about his improvements and all the other facets of his game. I mean, 2-3 years ago, when you looked at his defense, you're like, that guy's a DH. Mm-hmm. That guy is going to be a career-long DH. And he has improved so vastly in his defensive game that you're right. No one's going to mistake him for a Keith Hernandez or a Don Mattingly. No one will. But he doesn't cost you games anymore at first base. If we could say he's an average first baseman, we would have taken that 2-3 years ago. So we've seen that progression. Now, you're saying you're not seeing that progression at the plate. And I have to wonder if the reason why we don't see that same progression, what he does best, is because he has been putting it on himself to carry this offense from a RBI production standpoint. Because if Pete doesn't drive you in, And this lineup has shown that over the last 2-3 years. No one else is. There's none other guy there. Lindor's already on base. Nimmo's already on base. With the inconsistency of Jeff McNeil, Marte getting hurt, you don't have that other guy. And we brought in Tommy Pham. And listen, Tommy Pham's a good ball player. He's not a guy who should be batting fifth behind Pete Alonso. Daniel Vogelbach, yes, great power, great on-base percentage, all that. Not a guy who should be hitting behind Pete Alonso. They have yet to get him that guy. And to me, if the Mets were competing this year, how great it would have been to bring in JD Martinez to kind of mentor Pete in those situations you're talking about there. Because JD Martinez has been that RBI guy for the last 5-6 years. He's been a part of World Series championship caliber teams. He's been that guy in the middle of the lineup. And who has Pete had to really learn that role from? And with his tenure with the Mets.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
I do believe, going back to your point about the contract situation, that I think the Mets are reading this correctly. They're looking at these markets. They're seeing these players are not getting what they think unless you are a Shohei Ohtani. And Pete is not that caliber, but not many players are. You're not getting what you think. I mean, Nimmo, we thought for sure Nimmo was going to the Giants in that offseason. The Giants were going to overpay him, and they were going to bring him in. Didn't happen. And we got Nimmo back on a relatively decent deal, especially for a guy, again, doesn't hit for a lot of power. I mean, all I can say is a decent deal. But yeah, I really do feel confident that Pete will be back with the Mets. I really do.
My little analogy that I just wrote down to myself, going a little cross sport here. Pete Alonso is what RG3 was in Washington to me, where it was all flash and the substance sometimes lacks. So you've heard me say this before. When RG3 came out of Baylor and he had the socks during the whole Heisman situation, it was all a look at me. And then he has the spectacular rookie year being part of the Shanahan offense. And it looks like, okay, he's going to be better than Andrew Luck. You have Pete here, who, again, I don't think he's really like, hey, look at me like an RG3 is. But there's just something about him. Maybe it's wearing the home run derby necklace out to a bar after he wins the home run derby. There's just something about him that I cannot love. Like, you would think as a Mets player, you would love him.
Yeah, it really does. At this point, again, it just sickens me how you can't love or appreciate Pete Alonso. I get it, but I mean, but you're talking about Bryce Harper and his bravado and how he owns who he is. And I think Pete, who is somewhat of a goofball, I think he would own that. I think he would admit to that. I think he's a guy who owns what he is and what he's done. This is not a guy who's saying, I'm a triple crown hitter. I mash. I bring guys in. That's my job. That's what I do, and I do it incredibly well. And he should be paid very handsomely for it. And again, in the entire history of the Mets organization, they have never had a hitter this caliber of Pete Alonso. You say they brought in Piazza.
Okay.
You say you brought in Piazza. That's fine. You say you brought in Mike Piazza, who, yes, that would be the only other guy I'd compare him to. And yes, Piazza was definitely a better hitter than Alonso. From an RBI perspective, from a home run perspective, this is our Mark McGwire. Not saying he's Mark McGwire. Calm down. I'm just saying he should be treated as our Mark McGwire. The guy, when he goes up there, you're waiting to see his mammoth home runs being hit. That's what I love about Pete.
It's end of September. Mets are trying to get a playoff spot. You have Diaz from the Reds on the mound. You have Pete up to bat. You have a runner on second base. We'll call it second and third. One out. Do you have any faith he gets them in?
Not if Daniel Vogelbach's hitting fifth.
We'll say that McNeil is having his bounce back 310 year and he's batting fifth.
Yes, I have faith in Pete.
Okay,
I 100% do. I 100% do.
Right.
I think I really do think that's what it comes down to. Is if Pete looks in back of him and goes, either I'm doing it or no one's doing it. Yes, I don't like Pete in that situation. Pete will reach. He will chase high cheese. He will do all those things you just mentioned. I do want, again, you look at any great power hitter. None of them did it by themselves. They don't do it by themselves. They have protection. They have guys in back of them. And I mean, look at Mark McGwire. Mark McGwire had guys in back of him. He had the likes of Jose Canseco. He had the likes of Jim Edmonds. He had those caliber guys. Pete don't have that. He never has had that.
We'll see. I hope you're right. I hope and my fandom is rooting for it. I'm kind of setting myself up knowing that it's going to end up happening. There's going to be a very dirty breakup. And I'm kind of like, okay, I'm trying to set myself up not to be as upset when it happens, maybe.
Well, then if they do break up, then I'm all about Ryan Clifford time. Because I do like the fact that they brought him in from Houston. I think that guy can mash too. I agree. I'll tell you, the guy I'm looking forward to the most, I'm going to keep this really quick because I don't have to say much about him, and that's Jackson Holliday. I cannot wait to watch the Orioles play. As excited as everyone is about watching the Dodgers, and rightfully so, we should be as equally excited to watch this Orioles team in 2024. They blew onto the scene last year, and it's so rare that these small market teams, even though they don't have to be small market, but that's what the Orioles have been for the last decade plus. They've been a small market team. Finally, the owner sold the team. The new ownership group comes in. They make the trade for Corbin Burns, and now, boom, perennial World Series contenders. But they did it in a way of we're bringing up our own guys, and they have hit on what it seems like all of their guys. Adley Rutschman, we could argue, is the best catcher in baseball right now. Gunnar Henderson's one of the most exciting middle infielders in baseball right now.
He's playing third base this year.
Well, yeah, because you got to move him over because here comes Jackson Holliday. And that's what makes this incredibly exciting. Kerstad's going to come up at some point. Colton Cowser is going to come up at some point. There's all these other guys, but no one, according to everything I've been looking at, hearing, people I've been hearing talk, the reports I've been reading, all that fun stuff, no one talks about any of these guys the way they talk about Jackson Holliday. This is a franchise-changing caliber player. This is what, Alex Rodriguez meant to the Manners in those mid-90 years. Like, this is the guy, like, everyone's going, whoa, this is the next guy. And I think Jackson Holliday could absolutely be that guy. And if he is, with that pitching staff now and all those other guys that are there, they're going to be must-watch TV whenever they are on. I cannot wait to watch them play. And I don't know about you, whether it's, for me, becoming a father and seeing it, I love the players that come up whose fathers we know, we've seen when we watch when they were kids.
It makes me feel old.
I love it. There's something just so beautiful. Feel the Dreams, ask about it. Dad, you want to have a catch? Oh my God, there's something so beautiful about it. I'm so excited to see Drew Jones. Andrew Jones is my favorite player growing up. The fact that I'm going to see his son play baseball at possibly the highest level possible. I mean, it is so beyond the word interesting to me. I love the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and I love Vladimir Guerrero Sr. I mean, just all those connections there. It makes the sport again so beautiful and just all the feels that you want. Because again, how many of us grow up with having to catch with our dad in the backyard, and now we're seeing that play out in your fantasies, but in real life, it's amazing. It's beautiful to watch. I want all these guys, the Jackson Hollidays of the world, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Drew Jones, all these guys to be huge hits because it makes me feel very full circle. You know what I mean? Very Hakuna Matata, if you will. Circle of Life, Lion King. It makes me feel all those great things.
See, you're showing your dad colors right there because with me not being it just makes me feel old because I sit there and remember I hated Matt Holliday. I hated him on the Rockies, despised him on the Cardinals. So now when I look at Jackson Holliday, you know what I think? That kid hasn't gone through puberty yet. I don't like him. There's no way he's going to be a good Major League Baseball player. I'm rooting for you not to succeed.
Oh my God, you can't. And again, talk about, I know, but just talk about what that can do for the game, promoting the game. Getting more the youthful groups watching the game again. This is a great story to tell. All these stories are phenomenal stories to tell, dads and their sons, even moms and their sons, whatever. This can bring more kids, I think, into the game. You know, and I think it's a very surreal thing. I know it happens in other sports, like Bronny's going to be up very soon, the NBA playing. That is incredibly rare. With baseball, I don't know, it just has a different feel to it for me, and I love it. I'm all about it. Like I'm buying as much Jackson Holiday stock as I can.
Well, it's at an all-time high right now, so I don't really encourage you to invest right now. I think.
Well, yeah, his card prices are crazy.
It's insane. Like, and I'm watching his swing. I watched his swing against oh my God, the top pitching prospect from the Pirates, dating
Paul Skeens.
Yes, I was watching it today. 100 miles an hour. Like his swing is beautiful. Like he's just gonna be, he's gonna be a stud. And I'm jealous with what the Orioles are doing.
He's gonna be a monster.
The Orioles are like what the Sixers were when they were trying to do like the process. Like the process worked for the Orioles, and I could not
100%.
that stadium, that atmosphere.
100%.
If you can stick it to the Yankees, let's go. All right, do we want to go on to?
Absolutely. Again, yeah, let's go on to our fun topic, man. Let's dig for third, because you're round second, you're digging for that triple. You gotta dig for third, and that's what we're coming into here. But we're going to talk about something fun and very personal to the both of us, because Matt and I are huge hat guys. My wife thinks it's weird because I'm not a selfie guy. I'm not a big social media poster guy, but she always thinks it's weird when I do take a selfie, because she knows exactly what I'm doing. It means I bought a new hat and I'm sending it to Matt. And she goes, wow, you're really lame. I'm like, you're lame. This is cool. And then you text me back. You're like, oh, I love it. I'm like, see, Matt likes it. I am cool. And so this is something that's always been a big part of our friendship over the years. And what, again, another thing why we love baseball so much, it is the swag, it is the fashion, it is the hat, the lid. And it's what we are all about. But we have our favorites. So what Matt and I went ahead and did is we picked our 5 favorite teams to wear. These are not necessarily the greatest hats out there. For example, neither one of us are going to wear the Yankees, but we can both recognize that the Yankee hat is the best hat in all of sports.
I don't know about that. That's a topic for another.
Well, yes,
most
but
iconic.
That is conventional wisdom, and I have no problem conceding that. But I would never wear a Yankee hat, no matter how good I may look in it. All right. I am going to prefer these 5 teams. Matt, you have your 5 teams. Why don't you get things started here? You're already wearing them. Go ahead.
Right, I'm actually going to have to take off. I hate this hat, by the way. The Mets black.
Oh, see, that's right, because I have the Mets. I picked the Mets. You didn't pick the Mets. I picked the Mets.
Did you see what they're doing for this year? How they're getting rid of the what?
Yeah, I don't like it. I didn't buy that one.
They should have gone with.
I don't think it is either.
The blue brim would have been so much better.
Well, I have that ready to go. When I get into the Mets, I'm going to show you my blue brim one. I love it.
Okay, so I will take off this. My first choice, and to me, this is a slam dunk. As you can see, I got my red forehead now from wearing the hat. Slam dunk, the best hat possibly ever created. It's the color scheme. It's the simplicity. It just works. And again, we talked about them earlier in the pod, and it just breaks my heart. When they move to Vegas, they better keep this color scheme, because this is a thing of beauty. My number one choice.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Beautiful.
Gorgeous.
The simplicity of it, just the color contrast. It's a beautiful. Now, here's the thing with me being the English guy. Growing up, before I became this super English teacher, I always thought, I'm like, why did they do the apostrophe S? Because you're talking about plural A's, like numerous A's. I'm like, why did they do that? So I had to look it up. So whenever you have an initial or a number and you want to make it plural, you go apostrophe S. So there's a little English lesson for all you out there. So the number one hat for me, Oakland.
Love it. Love it. Absolutely love it, baby. I like it. So my number one, I am going to our Mets, because I wear Mets hats most of the time. All year long, I'm donning a Mets hat. I'm a big 47 franchise guy. I have tons of those, but there's nothing like the fitted. It's so cozy. It just feels good. Sometimes they get boxy. You can't always pull it off. But if you want to go comfort, you want to go, this is my squad, this is my team I'm repping, and that is, of course, my New York Mets, and I love the blue brim. Now, I believe I forget which website I got this one from. It was not Capsule Hats, which Capsule Hats, I'm going to come to one in a little bit. I love Capsule Hats. But this one here has the orange UV underneath, which I absolutely love. It has the side patch right there for the All-Star game. I absolutely love that. But whenever I used to wear it, well, early on when I became a Mets fan, the blue brim and the black hat was always my go-to one to go with. I've always loved this color combination. I have a big thing for orange. We'll come up again in a little bit. I love the orange. I love how orange looks. I love how orange and black always look together. I love the combination. Absolute favorite.
Whenever I say
that's my go-to.
I always think of Roger Cedeno. I have no idea why that color
really
always reminds me of Roger Cedeno, and I don't know why. It's like
no
Roger
kidding.
Cedeno, Timo Perez, 220 to 2000 World Series, Subway Series. I just am always thinking they need to bring that back instead of the black hat that I was wearing before.
Interesting.
All right, so for
what's your number two?
My number two. Now again, you're like, okay, black I can wear with everything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a colorful guy. I'm an English teacher.
You are.
You got to be a little bit weird. You got to be a little bit weird to be an English teacher. I'm a little
also very true.
A little bit of a motley type of guy. So I'll get rid of this beautiful, best looking hat. Probably one of my favorites. Again, you can't wear this with everything, but it is just pure beauty. The color is a color that's not really used in anything else, and if it is used in another team, it's a secondary color. This team should have never have left this logo, this color scheme. It was the beginning of the downfall. Even though it wasn't his fault, I'm going to blame Derek Jeter because I just like to do that.
Sure.
The Florida Marlins with the teal.
Oh, my God.
There is just something about the F with the Marlin completely wrapping behind it. Again, this is old.
Agree.
This is even like I'm talking like really old here. So this is even before the more recent.
Oh, yeah. Look at that.
Something about this was still like the label, the little logo on it.
Was it like, it's got to be like what, 20 years old?
At least 20 years old.
Yeah.
It doesn't even fit me at all with my hair being so long. The more recent one is in the same color teal as this one. There's just something about this. I don't know what the Marlins are doing. You're Miami. Don't wear black. Wear teal. Go back to teal full time.
It's so funny because I like the black and teal.
Oh, God.
With the black and the teal brim. I'm a big two-tone guy. That hat, oh my, that hat's atrocious.
Get out of here.
God, that thing is so ugly.
God, I can still see like Luis Castilla, and I can see like Juan Pierre.
Oh my God, Juan Pierre, yeah.
Kevin Brown and Josh Beck.
Yep.
Even though Beck was more like the black, like there's just
Juan Encarnacion.
Yes.
God, well, it takes a bold man to wear the teal, sir, and you can definitely pull that off. I like to go a little bit more conservative. I was wearing this earlier. This is without a doubt also one of my favorite hats, but also the most underrated logo in all baseball is the Rockies Mountain Look. I have this one here. You'll appreciate this. I don't wear this much, obviously, because of the color. That's that teal color there as well. I don't wear this much. I'm obsessed. Whenever I see this logo, I want to buy the hat. And I think these are the only two I do have. What do you have? I can't see what's back there.
It's just my Rockies hats right up there.
I do. I love the Rockies hats. I've always wanted to go to Coors Field. I mean, it's always been on my bucket list too. There's just something about the Rockies I've always loved. And I know they have the traditional C and the R on their hat. I would love if they moved to this and made this their actual logos on their hats going forward. I love the Rocky Mountains. I love the baseball on there. I think it works incredibly well. I think it would sell better than the C and the R as well.
Here's two hot takes for you real quick. First of all, more teams need to wear purple. The Rockies need to embrace purple. Love the color scheme. They got to get rid of the vest. The Rockies to me have such a unique identity. Second hot take, the Rockies City Connect jerseys are beautiful.
Love.
If you put purple into
the best ones. I don't care.
Beautiful.
They're the best ones.
Beautiful.
Yep. Absolute best look. I loved them. That was the best City Connect. I know Cincinnati was hot last year too. I loved Cincinnati's. Pittsburgh's was fine. I thought Colorado was by far my favorite. Great. Who's your number three?
Okay, for this one, I am going with not necessarily the color because it is traditional, but honestly, I think it is one of the best logos in the game.
It is.
Strong,
it really is.
Beautiful logo incorporating the maple leaf. I have the Toronto Blue Jays. Absolutely
love it.
There's no real bad iteration of the Blue Jays logo unless you go with like the Carlos Delgado year when the bird was like absolutely on steroids.
Yeah, that one I wasn't a fan of. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of it.
You go back to like Joe Carter. You go back to like when they had, I have it I don't know if you can see that on the screen. So even like that one with the white panel back.
Oh, see, I like the one with the white panel. I like that
I
look.
think it's beautiful. You cannot go wrong with them, with their uniform, with their numbering. Yep. It's. I would say it's, if you take away iconic, because again, Yankees, Dodgers are iconic. This is one of the best logos, one of the best uniforms, one of the most beautiful collection.
Yes.
Possible.
Absolutely.
Love it. Can't go wrong.
Absolutely. I like it. I like the blue. I've always liked the Blue Jays hats. Always good stuff. For my next one, now see, I like how you said with the white paneling. The Blue Jays can be very versatile. They have been very versatile throughout their history, and it's worked incredibly well. Another team, even though you don't see it on the field, they have multiple looks that work, and that's why they're my number 3. It was very close. They really should have been my number 2, but that is the Detroit Tigers, because that old English D, you could argue the best logo in all of baseball is that old English D. And no matter if you're using orange or using the all blue or the white D, I mean, that it's always a great look. Always a great look. I got a bunch of Tiger hats I like to show off. This one I bought at Lids when they were doing their, it's the 125th anniversary hats. Not a big fan of this raised Batterman here. That way it's like kind of like a copper or a bronze look. I wasn't a huge fan of that, which is why I don't wear it a lot. This one I got from Capsule Hats. Definitely check out Capsule Hats if you like high quality hats. They come in ridiculous boxes when they get to your house too. It's like you're unpackaging flowers or something. It's ridiculous. But I absolutely love. I mean, it's a giant yellow D here, but with the brown look, it's absolutely solid. When they do break out the Tiger, they've done this a few times for their spring training looks.
Love it.
I love it. It's awesome. I wish they used it more. Absolutely love this hat. My favorite Tigers hat is this one here. I believe I got from Four Caps USA. It's a phenomenal look. It's all gray with the blue Old English D, the blue undervisor, the raised Batterman, which I'm all about the raised Batterman. I mean, this is it's such a great hat. Whenever I put it on, I do. I feel spectacular.
It's a great
it gets fit. It's like a nice sock. You slip on, like, ooh, that's nice and cozy. So yeah, I do like this Tiger hat here. I love the Tigers logos.
The Old English D to me, like, so recently they increased the actual size of the D to make it a little bit more pronounced. And I think
they would keep doing that.
It's beautiful. Like, it's funny with my wife's brother Vincent, we will send each other on each other's birthdays some of the old Tigers logos. Some of their really old logos are absolutely phenomenal. Kind of like the one that you showed with like the front-facing tiger. They have one where you can see all 4 of its legs. Just use that. Use all of those. Like, give me all of them.
100%.
Give me all of that.
100%. 100%.
For my fourth, I should say, I'm going
4, yeah.
Because I, again, like being a little bit different. I don't like things that are necessarily traditional. A little bit of a hot take here, but this probably won't even fit on my head right now. I'm not even going with a traditional hat. I'm going with the pillbox.
Okay. Oh, it's awesome.
The Pittsburgh Pirates.
Love it.
Willie Stargell, we are family. So I had to do a little bit of research. So I was looking at it like, why did they end up going with the pillbox? Why did they put the stars next to it? The stars were actually because of Willie Stargell. He started like putting the stars on. The pillbox, now correct me if I'm wrong, because with you being the historian that you are, all of Major League Baseball, or predominant, a lot of Major League Baseball during the centennial anniversary of the United States, they went to the pillbox shape. So you had like you had the Pirates, you had like the Mets, you had other teams that went to this design. Now again, there's no Batterman in the back, so it just straight kind of looked like a prisoner, or even like a train conductor here. But there's just something about this hat that's like completely
definitely
different.
Not a hat. That's definitely not a hat you can wear backwards.
No, a lot of these things I can't wear. No, I'm getting old, and I'm like, wow, I look like, hey kids, what are you guys doing when I wear my hat backwards now?
I believe it. My wife still loves it when I do.
It's like still like a little.
She's like whenever you turn your hat around backwards, there's something about you. You look like really cute. I'm like, wow, all right, okay. I'm feeling that. Now I'm wearing it backwards. It's when I'm with my friends and we're out and having a good time, and I turn the hat around backwards. They're like, oh, party clouds out. Now I'm buying people like drinks and whatnot. It's gonna be a crazy night.
That's great.
It's kind of like our bat signal.
That's
I'll tell you, I love the P. I've always loved the P. But I think what also makes the Pirates great too is when they do the Buccaneer look. I love this hat's too tight. Unfortunately, this hat is just too tight for me, and I can't wear it as much as I want to. But that logo right there is fire, and the Pirates have so many good looks. Another one's very versatile. I love the Pirates. I'm so glad you picked them.
So when they wore, like way back in the 90s, when they wore their turn ahead the clock games, I remember Jay Bell having on that massive logo on his chest. I'm like, that to me is
Bell.
Like 90s personified. Like perfect. Love it.
Oh,
the color scheme, everything, you can't go wrong with it.
It's outstanding.
Okay.
Outstanding.
I'll go with my last one. Oh, did you?
You have another. I haven't done my 4 yet. I'm gonna do my 4.
Oh, okay.
My fourth one. I'm gonna keep this really simple because I don't get the one hat. And again, this is very tight on me too. But again, I'm going back to the black and orange. I'm going back to the Giants. There's something about, again, the lettering of the S and the F. Again, all black works. All orange and black works. There's something about, not only because the ballpark is the number one ballpark on my bucket list I want to get to in San Francisco, but come playoff time, when you're seeing everyone in the stands wearing that black and orange, it's like you're stepping into a completely different environment. Not an environment I want to be in as a visiting player. And I'm telling you, it's the color combination. It's the hat that does it. It's like you are going into the Lions Den and you are not coming out alive. Like there's just something about the look I've always loved. It works. I can't say enough about the Giants colors. It is just classic. I mean, you think about, October, not only October baseball in the postseason, but like the fall, the season. I mean, it just, everything works so well with it. I love the color combination. I always loved the orange and black. It was between that and the Orioles, and I could not decide again. I couldn't pick against the Giants. I just couldn't. I love the logo. I love the color scheme too much to pick against them.
And I love the fact that the Mets stole the orange from the Giants as part of their identity as well.
Well, they didn't steal it. It was just from the New York Giants to bring it apart with that the Brooklyn Dodgers, which is why it's black, orange, and blue. Absolutely.
Was that a low profile?
Yeah, it was low profile.
We'll have to have a discussion about those another day.
You're not a fan.
No. Maybe because I got a massive forehead. Maybe that's why. All right, we going to my last one?
Yeah, you go to your last one. I'll do my last one.
Okay. So this one, again, if I'm going to go with something that beautiful logo, strong logo, but something you can wear every day. And there's little subtleties in the logo itself that once I saw it, it was like that arrow that's in the FedEx logo. You just fixate on that, and you're like, oh, my God, how did I never see that before? For my fifth and final cap, I feel like I'm straight like Ice Cube right now.
It's just so clean. It's so clean. It's so clean. It's so nice.
So it's the fact with the little socks at the bottom of the X. Like, I'm in love.
It's so nice.
I'm in love.
It's so nice.
It's the black, it's the white, it's the S, even though it kind of reminds me a little bit of like the Seattle Kraken now. I'm going to say but it's just it's the angling of it. And again, it's the little socks. Like, how do you not?
It's classic.
How do you not love it?
It's classic. And it's this past year when Charlotte was playing Little League, she was playing T-ball for the first time. Her team was the White Sox. And I got all excited.
It's great.
Not just because she was playing T-ball, because of course I got excited she was playing T-ball now. But now I'm like, oh, now I can go buy myself a hat.
Yes.
Because as team manager, I needed to buy myself a hat. I was going to wear what Little League gave out. No way. I had to go it. So I instead of the socks, I went old school.
Oh.
And I got a 47 fit with the S and the O in the top part of the S and the X in the bottom part. You know the logo I'm talking about there?
Yeah.
Loved it. Loved it. It's one of my favorite franchise hats from 47. I love 47. I love that hat because it's just so clean. The white, it's just black and white is just so incredible. It's such a clean, fresh look with two of the simplest colors you can have. And it's just, it rocks. It doesn't even just work. It rocks. It's a great look. And yes, Ice Cube definitely made it the most popular. That's for sure. My last one, I did not go major league team. And there are some notable ones I could have picked. Again, I could have went to the Orioles, but again, with already doing the Giants and the black and orange, I couldn't do that. I could have went with Seattle Mariners. And I love the Seattle Mariners look. I like it with. I think I have it right here. Yep. I mean, whether you go with this one or with the teal brim, again, it looks great. I always loved Seattle, but I am a big minor league hat guy. I'm a big minor league hat guy. There's a whole bunch of them I love with ridiculous logos, ridiculous color schemes. But if you want to go classic, there's to me nothing better than the Brooklyn Cyclones. I love the Brooklyn Cyclones. If you've not been to a Brooklyn Cyclones game, I cannot encourage it enough. It is a great environment on Coney Island. It's everything you'd want out of your minor league team, you have right there in Brooklyn. And they have the cleanest looks, the cleanest logo. Even when they get crazy, it's not too crazy, but it's still fun. This is oh my god, this is to celebrate.
Is it the Dia de los Muertos ones that they do?
Yeah, I think it's to celebrate one of those. But it's a hot dog in a bun. It looks awesome. It's great. Again, other color schemes they've had too, I've loved over the years. Again, this is just super simple stuff. I absolutely love it all. This is the one that started it all. I mean, I am obsessed with anything Brooklyn Cyclones. I love going to their games. I've only been the one time, but it was a memorable time. I loved doing it. Can't wait to go back. I'm trying to get back there this summer. I'm going to bring Charlotte down. Maybe I'll bring Matt. You want to go?
Let's go.
We gotta go to Coney. We gotta go. Go to Nathan's. Get a dog. Oh my, we will live it up down there. Absolutely love it. And they got some great stuff there.
I'll just stay out of the bathroom, and one of our trips will actually come to fruition. And you won't really get that joke unless you're like Christina or Kevin. I actually have the Cyclones in the red and yellow colorway.
Yeah.
And I just saw on, again, I'm going to sound like a real old guy, on TikTok, how a lot of the minor league teams are doing like a one-day spin-off, completely different identity.
Yeah.
I love what they're doing. One of them is
awesome.
Something about like an utter yanker or something along those lines.
Yes. Oh my god. It was just on my Instagram the other day. Yes, I forget the team, but yes. Oh wait, was it Wisconsin?
Yes, I think it is. I think it is Wisconsin.
I think it's Wisconsin. The Timber Rattlers, whatever they're called. Yeah. For their dairy farms. Love it. Hudson Valley. Yeah. Which the Renegades, it's 15 minutes away. We did it last year. We're bringing it back again. The cider donut hat.
I saw that.
It is phenomenal.
With like the logo on the side of the shirt as well. Yeah.
Outstanding. Outstanding. I love the minor league hats.
That makes baseball fun.
It does. Absolutely. Well, Matt, what's the last segment, baby? Let's get. We're coming home.
Okay.
Let's come home. So what we're doing here for coming home, again, we're gonna wrap things up real quick here. Thank you if you've been tuning into us the whole time. Thank you so much for our first episode. I think going forward, we'll probably more on the shorter side, but it's our first one. We're excited. We got a lot we want to talk about. Hopefully it's all good stuff for you guys. But to end things not quickly, but on the quicker side, Matt, if someone handed you $1,000 to make a Major League Baseball futures bet, okay, this is play money. So if you lose it, it's not a big deal. But I see what you wrote down here, and you went more conservative, and I like it. Nothing wrong with being conservative. Take the money. You're going the smart approach. What's your bet you're going to make with $1,000?
Okay, so I have two here, and I was kind of going back and forth of it, trying to get the most value out of my money. Did I want, again, we're playing with like free money here. So do I want to go outlandish? Do I want to pick like a long shot? Or do I want to take that $1,000 and make money off of it? So I was going back and forth between two things. The first thing, my initial pick was whatever the Oakland A's under was for win totals for the year, I was going to take it. So initially it was at 56.5 wins, and I'm thinking they've got no home. There's going to be no home field advantage. That ballpark is a cesspool. Yeah. The Possums are like the biggest draw, the Possums being in the broadcaster's box. There's nothing. If you were to ask me right now, name 3 players on the Oakland A's, I'm sure. I'm like, oh wait, Trevor May retired this year, so he's not on there anymore. I'm like, no. I'm struggling immensely with them. But I didn't want to do that. So if I had taken that would have been plus 110. I was like, okay, so sometimes there has been these long shots that have come out of nowhere, and I'm thinking maybe the Angels are going to have a really bad year. I think Trout's going to be injured again by June. Like the stuff that Anthony Rendon is saying, I'm like, get that cancer off my team.
It's a toxic franchise
it's now. Like, what do the Angels have to sell you?
Yeah.
So I was like, wait, do I want to do that? But then today, when I was on a break from work, I came across a bet on FanDuel that said that the National League East, first and second place in that order, would be plus 140. So what I'm going to take with that $1,000 that's given to me, I'm going to take the Atlanta Braves coming in first in the NL East, followed by the Philadelphia Phillies coming in second for plus 140. That's where I'm putting my $1,000. That's where I'm making money from. Tell me where that goes wrong.
I mean, the only way to me that goes wrong is injuries, like significant injuries. Um, to me, it's a Spencer Strider going down, and then the Phillies end up winning the division, and then Atlanta comes in second, which kind of screws you. Something along those lines, I think would hurt you. I think Atlanta is more adept to missing an Acuna or an Albies for a long period of time,
But
like
they
not
still
a
just
Spencer Strider
mesh.
rotation. No, that's right. That's what I mean. If they lost one of those guys, I think you'd be fine because they have enough offense there to make up for it. Whereas if they lost a Strider, I don't know if they have enough in the rotation to do it. But Strider, so far, knocking on wood here, hasn't shown any signs of fatigue or arm fatigue, or he doesn't have that injury history. So you should be fine there. That's just not something I could possibly foresee happening, but that's how I would see you not making out on that bet. If Atlanta is at its best, they're winning the division. If Philly's at their best, they still need a lot of things to go wrong with Atlanta to win the division. And I don't think the Mets, obviously the Nationals, and obviously the Marlins are going to play a factor in it.
And the thing is, too, with again, like one of the first teams that I actually fell in love with was the Atlanta Braves because they were on TBS and you could watch them. So
that's why I rooted for them.
It was the Ron Gant years. It was like that was like the Sid Bream. Like those were the teams that was like, oh my God, young Matt. Absolutely love. Now this Braves team, like I hate them because it's like, where do these players come from? Michael Harris comes out of nowhere, and all of a sudden he's a stud. You get rid of Chipper gets replaced. It's just like Acuna goes down. Okay, you're going to win the World Series. Like
it's an organization that's prided itself on great scouting and great baseball men, or individuals. I should say men anymore, but individuals, people who made great decisions. And that's how your franchise turns into a powerhouse that it's been now for really our entire lives. I mean, there really hasn't been a point in Atlanta's history where they were, the cellar dwellers in the division or in the National League. We haven't seen it in our lifetime, really.
You get rid of
that's in a way you're able to do that by having those individuals to make those decisions.
You get rid of Freddie Freeman, who when he's with the Dodgers, he's a top 3 MVP candidate. You fill in first base with Matt Olson. And he hits freaking bombs all the time. How many times did he put a dagger in the Mets? It's just like, okay, we're filling it in.
Go even before that, even before Freddie Freeman. There was the likes of Adam LaRoche and Mark Teixeira was there for a year. And those guys were replacing the Fred McGriffs and the Andres Galarragas. I mean, first base just in general for Atlanta, I mean, they just know how to hit on that position. They've done it for years, and they're doing it again.
You get rid of Dansby, you have another shortstop go to the All-Star game. It's just like, okay, the sun rises, the Braves are going to recoup, the Braves are going to be
absolutely. They're like a college football program.
Yes,
they just reload
with Nick Saban.
Yes, they just reload, or even with Kirby Smart, what he's been doing in Georgia. Same exactly. They're going to find the next prize recruit, and they're going to develop them, and they're going to hit. It's just what Atlanta does. But yeah, that's the only way I would see you not making out on that deal. I mean, God, look at the Phillies last year. Look how slow of a start they got off to, and they still ended up finishing in second and making a deep playoff run. So yeah, I mean, that's the only way. Is I think a major injury in Atlanta derails it, but you're not far off from it. That's for sure.
Yep. All right, I'm giving you $1,000 now. What are you doing?
I'm going bold because someone gave me $1,000. No one told my wife that someone handed me $1,000, and now I'm just going ahead and throwing on a baseball bet. And if I took that $1,000, Matt, and I did something safe like you're doing here, which makes lots of sense, and it didn't happen, and then I have to go and tell my wife that someone handed me $1,000, and I lost it like that, I don't think she'd be too happy. Now, if I take that $1,000 and I put it on a dog, and that dog hits, she's not going to be upset at all when I bring home $11,000. And that's why I'm taking my $1,000 and I'm putting on the Kansas City Royals to win the AL Central. They're going off at plus 1,000. How are they going off at plus 1,000 in that division? I keep hearing everyone saying, the Twins are reloaded. But the Twins were crafty this offseason. They didn't spend any money again. The Twins will be there again, and you can't count out Cleveland's pitching. And look what's going on in Detroit. I don't know what's going on in Detroit. They have some young guys there that absolutely could pop. But the Royals have young guys, and they've already popped. And now they might be ready for that next step. Bobby Witt Jr., Melendez, Pascatino, Cole Reagans, who might be a dark horse for the AL Cy Young this year. That's how good this guy's stuff was, and he dominated the American League when he came up last year. And now they went out there and they brought in guys like Seth Lugo, Michael Wacha, guys who can eat up innings. I'm just saying, I'm not saying they're winning the AL, just that crappy AL Central with a whole bunch of teams that don't want to compete at a high level. They're fine winning their 84, 85 games and just happening to win the AL Central. I think the Royals are hungry. I think the Royals want to win now. I think they have the guys to do it, especially in that division. I'm going to take that grand. I'm going to turn it over 10K, and I'm going to come home, and I'm going to tell my wife, and then I can go buy hats, and she can't give me a hard time for it.
You know what happens to greedy people?
What's that?
They lose.
Well, that's why I lose a lot when I gamble. I get it. I'm doing 10, 12 leg parlays, baby. I'm making it happen. I'm making it. If someone's handing me $1,000 and I have to make a bet, I'm going big. I'm going big.
I'm investing in my IRA and all that adult stuff. And you're like, hey, I've got some Dogecoin. You guys want some?
Oh, my God. Yeah, that really works out well.
I've got some NFTs.
You
you want to go buy some Bored Apes?
Well, I can get you to buy some baseball cards next. That would be huge.
Already, I got enough vices.
Oh, no. We're going to get into some more of those vices next time. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you did tune in, we really appreciate it. We got much more to talk about in our next episode. We're going to try to break out 2 a month to get started. So every other week, we will have a new episode for you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like, leave some comments, nice comments, because again, we're trying. It's our first time. Don't go too brutal on us. And we look forward to having this talk again. Matt, great job, buddy.
It was fun. I enjoyed myself.
Loved it. Love it. All right, guys. You guys take care.